This is the Garden Cinema Film Talk. We chat with filmmakers, actors, producers and film commentators about the art of film. This week, we welcomed a group of screenwriting and film students from City Lit to watch The Lost Honour of Katharina Blum, directed by Margarethe von Trotta and Volker Schlondorff, based on the book by Heinrich Boll. Blum, a young woman living in West Germany in the 70s, finds her life falling into ruins after she falls prey to a vicious smear campaign by the police and a ruthless journalist, testing the limits of her sanity. The film is an open critique of media manipulation and demonisation and the misuse of state power, a critique which many people find still resonates in the many instances of collusion between the state, the police and the tabloids today. Our students join us in the bar to share their thoughts about the film and its legacy. Thank you very much for joining us for this Garden Cinema post-film discussion on the Monday matinee screenings.
Having been to several of the films in the German season, this is definitely one of the more interesting ones for me. This and Fury is the Soul, I think, would be the two that I would particularly give you a view of what German society was like in the 1970s.
The main issue that's usually brought up with this film is the way it resonates with current issues around tabloids, around demonisation. Did you pick that up?
I thought the film was about Twitter. You know, power of free speech. It comes up at the end in the film, doesn't it? But, you know, huge debates around social media, but particularly around Twitter. What does free speech mean? And, you know, can one person who has so much power decide for everyone? So, sorry to bring it really up to date, but
no, but that's good to see how the echoes of
absolutely. Yeah, for me, it felt so contemporary,
It definitely resonated. I mean, it was unsubtle in many ways.
Very.
Very unsubtle. It kind of made the points. It made them fairly heavy, but it had some humour as well.
Do you find that effective? That it was a bit on the nose?
It's probably more on the nose, I think, than a film would be now.
Yeah, when you speak about the power of free speech, though, I mean, there is a counterbalance in as much that, I mean, currently here, you could argue that the broadcast media are a direct counterbalance to a lot of the popular press. But we didn't get to hear anything from within the film about the broadcast media, did we not, in Germany, unless I missed something at the time in the 90s.
Was it the Springer press in the 70s in Germany?
Axel Springer.
Yeah. He was like a tabloid editor. I think there is a particularly German aspect to it in terms of it's not just the press, it's the whole police, the whole state seems to be involved. That maybe is more than here. It's a massive collusion, and I was quite surprised when they asked that question, how long do you think he will get? If this was a guy who was so dangerous and whatever, and yet he was only going to get 8 years, what had he done that caused such a massive overreaction?
They said he robbed a bank, didn't they? They didn't actually say he killed anybody.
No, he'd not killed anybody.
No. I mean, it was a very unsubtle piece of work. I mean, the pictures of the policemen were, quite frankly, ludicrous.
It would be quite good to see the American paranoia films of that time, again, to compare. Like
Can you think of one?
The Conversation, Parallax View, even all the President's Men, all made at about that time, about surveillance and paranoia in America. None of which I'm afraid I've seen recently. But it would be nice to see them again, to see if they seem as heavy-handed as that did. Maybe they would.
Conversation is one.
Conversation, fantastic, yes.
Yeah.
Or the police were very judgmental of her as a person as well, because we weren't sure if she was colluding or if she was just a witness, and they seemed to judge her for her morals. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, Christine Keeler, the way they judge Christine Keeler, who done absolutely nothing wrong, really.
Yes,
It was just, it was similar, admittedly, but a bit earlier, with politicians, but similar. But this is a film, and it's supposed to be a work of fiction, and it wasn't, the brushstrokes weren't very careful. It was sort of layered on a bit, in my opinion.
She appeared so innocent at the beginning when you saw her at that party, and that scene when she was just having her breakfast, and she clearly wasn't expecting anything like that to happen. You know, she was just drinking her coffee in the morning, and then suddenly. And they were brutal to her right from the start. They put her in that cell with that toilet, and that was they were really nasty from the start.
But she didn't show any sense of outrage or surprise when the kind of armed police storming into her apartment. So you would think maybe there's something behind here.
So there was the ambivalence. She seemed innocent, but she wasn't so shocked that she was.
She was just calm about it. Didn't protest.
Yeah, she maybe did have conversations with Ludwig about politics as well.
Yes,
you know, that they got to know each other.
Well, was the director there making a comment about the comparative weakness of women in society as opposed to present day?
So they would just expect that kind of heavy-handed reaction from the police.
And the way that women were regarded generally in society, which is obviously not as well as today. I'm sure that was the point that they were trying to make.
It was so male, wasn't it? It was so male. All the it was just absolutely.
If the police, behave any differently with rape victims, because they judge the victim, they make reporting a crime completely traumatic. They look at their social media as if it had any relevance. So I don't think it's changed that much.
No, it's very contemporary because today, I was thinking all the way through the film, innocent before proven guilty. No, it's the opposite. And that's what we have in today's society. It's happening more and more, I think. Yeah. I mean, when you look at the Me Too outrages, you're guilty before you've got the chance to prove you're innocent, aren't you? And that's coming from the press normally, or social media. So I was thinking about those sort of issues as well as I was watching the film.
The police seemed, in one way, quite competent, though, because the whole film was set over 5 days, I think. Yeah. Wednesday to Sunday, Wednesday to Monday. So in that time, they'd found Ludwig, which took a bit of police work. So they may have been heavy-handed, but they seem to have found the guy they wanted.
I thought the director was to be congratulated on the absolute total element of surprise when she shot Totches. I'm sure that made everyone in the cinema sit up. I woke up.
But if you knew nothing about the film, if you hadn't done any research beforehand, the way she went to the drawer and then suddenly she was finding a gun and some bullets. So that was a good twist.
Did everybody in Germany have a gun in 1975? No, I don't know.
Very doubtful.
Wasn't he? I mean, the book was Heinrich Boll.
30 years ago.
Wasn't there some sort of bank robbery in the early 70s where instantly the press blamed Bader-Meinhof, and he responded by saying, well, you've got to look at the evidence and there's got to be due process, and he was vilified for that. It sort of inspired the film, and you almost get the impression it was him sort of holding the gun. At the end, that was almost a wish fulfilment of the director.
Mine are a bit of an Oliver Stone type of film, because you put your message across, but don't do it in any subtle fashion whatsoever.
I mean, the scene when they surrounded the house where Ludwig was holed up, I mean, how many vehicles have they got there? 50? Some phenomenal number.
Yeah, some kind of armoured tank as well.
Absolutely. It's amazing, over the top.
But that bit as well, when she's in her flat and they're all watching, she just pulls the curtain
and he's watching.
And there's somebody. That is very powerful.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That reminds me, I think, of the Parallax View. I think it was a scene just like that in that, which was about that time.
I've seen other films by Margarethe von Trotta, the German sisters, and there was another one that I saw, and she is very political.
Right.
And how do you feel that one compares to her other work?
Oh, this one's much harsher, much more brutal. The German sisters was like a feminist film about two sisters, but this was a brutality of a state. And I think as well, that there was hinted at when the joker was probably coming from a radical's perspective, was saying they didn't touch me because I was an old Nazi. He could only have been a Nazi when he was a teenager, so he wouldn't have been wholeheartedly behind it. Yeah. But the state at that point was, in 1975, a lot of the people in big positions were still ex-Nazis. They were not denazified, so which is fundamentally the roots of why Bader-Meinhof were protesting against the state, because a lot of the judges and people in high positions were ex-Nazis. So something about the time epoch. We forget how close 1975 was to the war, 30 years. So.
Yeah. A lot of people in authority back then, as you said, were ex-Nazis or had been in some position of authority 20 years or 30 years before that. So there's a level at which this collusion between the authorities and the press seeks to kind of shut down any critique of that or any debate. So did you feel that came?
Yeah, I thought that came across in the initial, breaking down of the door to the flat. I thought that was very Nazi-like. It was, the jackboots weren't there, but everything else was. It was very much. If you go back 30 years, that would have been exactly what happened.
But don't we do it now still? You see these drug raids on television.
Dressed in black, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if she's bars of Meinhof and they're going to be blowing up, I guess it's understandable. The treatment of her later and that scene with the toilet was absolutely disgusting.
The particular resonance, though, is just that this film is German, isn't it? And that's there's a certain piquancy with the forces of the state acting like the Gestapo.
It'd be interesting to see what a similar scenario would be. Say, if you look at what was happening in Britain in '75, it would be the IRA stuff. How would the police have dealt with someone who'd been in the IRA?
Well, similarly, they still have to break him to start with, but I'm not sure they sort of surround them like that. I mean, she was all on her own, with all the men sort of put over her. It was extremely traumatic, wasn't it? Very brutal.
But if they'd been so good at their surveillance, how did Ludwig get away from that?
The architect had
the architect showed he worked out how she got it, how he got out, but she produced the plan through the duct.
Was Ludwig actually a member of Baader Meinhof? Was he a terrorist, or was he just a bloke who had made off with the regiment's pay? I mean, that was
we don't know, do we?
He deserved to. I mean, maybe, I don't know.
I think the presumption is he had some political idea.
He must have done.
I think so,
because they would have known about it.
As to what extent he was demonised for something that actually was kind of a lowly crime.
Well, we never knew.
We weren't told, were we?
But again, if they only thought he was going to get 8 years, then it can't have been that.
No, it can't be massive.
On another tack, I don't think, I may be wrong, I don't think any of our filmmakers here, or maybe the USA in the mid-70s, would have shot a scene with a dead person ready to be laid out, naked, female. Or maybe I haven't seen enough art house films. I don't know.
You haven't been to Germany enough, Tom.
Okay.
They're very keen on naked bodies in Germany, live or dead.
I don't think they would have done.
There was an essay on the Criterion website about the film in 2003 and about its relevance to the post 9/11 world, and that was a debate that touches on things we've been speaking about. But I wonder now, going forward about 20 years, if the power of the tabloids has slightly waned and in its place has come social media, as you say. So what's the situation now? How would you be demonised now? Because it feels very decentralised.
Maybe not so much in this country, but I mean, you've got Fox News, haven't you, in the US? I don't know. I mean, they're obviously trying with this new Piers Morgan, isn't it? The GB News. But I don't know if there's. I think you're right, but maybe not. Maybe in America it's slightly different. I mean, there's been quite a few films about Fox News and Ailes and what they used to do. There was a lot of power there, wasn't there?
Well, there's a documentary called Outfoxed, which is interesting to watch, but that's from a good 2 decades ago.
There's a whole series about Roger Ailes. Russell Crowe played him, which I can't remember what it was called. It was absolutely brilliant, and he was a shocker. What he only got up to.
But I mean, you had the News of the World, didn't you? Phone tapping scandal.
Yes. That's quite a long time ago.
That was the start of the decline of the tabloids, really.
Yes.
The News of the World shut down.
They were shut down, weren't they?
Yeah. And now it would be interesting to see in its place how that kind of scenario would play out with social media. But there's something very frivolous about social media that feels like the films are aimed at a younger audience. So no one's really explored what the power of demonisation via social media, except in documentaries, of course.
That's important, isn't it? Because although you say, social media there is a frivolous element to it, but it seems to be, one of the reasons why, say, the US, maybe here, we're so divided. We're incredibly divided, whether it's about vaccines or about, just the last USA elections. The huge, significant percentage of the population still don't believe that Biden won legitimately.
But has that division been stoked by social media? Because divisions were always there in society about subjects. Yeah?
Absolutely. And this is not a new phenomenon, but yes, it has been stoked and just made worse. Is it made worse?
The QAnon conspiracy theories, I suppose it sort of ferments it, doesn't it?
Yeah. People don't believe anything now. They just, if they're being asked questions about the midterms at the moment, I think the BBC were asking some questions last night. It was a candidate in, I think, Pennsylvania who is anti-abortion, but has been accused of paying for 2 abortions, and most of the Republican supporters are saying, well, we don't believe it, it's made up, prove it to me.
What's that saying? There's an alternative truth. The alternative truth.
Alternative facts.
Alternative facts. How can you have alternative facts? It's either a fact or it isn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think for me, as maybe I took more than other people of the film about the state and the police scrutinising an individual's life than I did the press. I saw the press sting and that journalist stuff all going on as well. But for me, more I took away, this is what the state can do when it's really, really paranoid, and how it can completely character assassinate someone.
I agree. I felt like the paper was a tool of the state, really. It wasn't so much its responsibility, it was rather that it was a way for the state to do this. But then you could argue that it's also an attack on the fact that the press should stand up to the state.
And they weren't at all, they were completely colluding with the police, because that journalist at the beginning was just always with the police. At first I didn't realise he was a journalist until it came.
There is that fantastic scene, isn't there, where the policeman gives the newspaper man something, and in return he gets some information. They're in the locked.
It's a sort of reciprocal relationship.
Which is exactly what happened.
Well, I imagine it was. I mean, the interrogation was in an open plan office. I mean, I very much doubt Germany's really like that, even in '75. But I agree with Ian about the state. Once the paranoia sets in.
And there was
pressure
a film,
to get results. There was the police.
There was a film a few years later that Fassbinder did. I don't know if it was his last film. No, it can't. But it was called Deutschland in Herbst, Germany in Autumn, and it was about the paranoia of Germany at the time and how hard it was to live in that state.
That sounds interesting.
Well, and then years later we had The Lives of Others, if any of you.
Yes.
That was
What a
very
wonderful film.
beautiful.
Brilliant film.
On a lighter note, we did discuss in the bar that Todd Gears needed to be shot because of his awful cardigan and his terrible kipper tyres.
But the fashions were awful on everybody.
But his particularly bad.
The most offensive thing about the film.
That is a bit hard.
This was the Garden Cinema Film Talk. You can find out more about the cinema screenings and seasons on our website, thegardencinema.co.uk, and follow us, send us comments and feedback on our social media @The Garden Cinema.